Hello again and welcome to another bearing removal and installation video featuring Boca bearings. Now today's engine is a beautiful low-time Saito FA-72a engine that I happened to get for a really sweet deal at a swap meet because it had an unfortunate incident with the head being stripped out where the glow plug goes. So, beautiful engine. It just needed a new head. Unfortunately, heads for these are not available, so I had a buddy of mine offer to put a helicoil in the head and rethread that. This thing is like brand new now. So let's go to the table and I'll show you this engine and then I'll finish disassembling it and we'll do some bearing removal and replacements on it. Okay, so here is this beautiful Saito FA-72 engine, kind of in a state of disrepair. I've got some of the items off of it because I had taken basically just the head off and was assessing as to whether or not I could fix those threads, and of course I do not have the means or the materials or the skills to do that, but luckily a buddy of mine did. So I sent the head out. I had to take everything out, took the valves out, and sent the head to him, and he put a nice new helicoil in there, and you could never even tell it had an issue. So this engine, as I said, looks to be a really low time engine. So I'm going to finish. The upper half has already been disassembled before because I had to send the head off, but I need to finish disassembling this lower end to the point where we can actually do the bearing removal and replacement. So let me get that going and then we'll get some bearings installed. Okay, so I got this Saito engine torn down to the point of being able to remove and replace the bearings on it. And like I said, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'm replacing the bearings just so I can make this engine completely fresh from new, basically as close to new as possible. So what I've got here is my little Delrun block to help me tap these bearings out, my brass punch to get that front bearing out, my hammer, and a glove, which I'm going to put on right now and heat this crankcase up so we can get these bearings out. Okay, hopefully that should be plenty to get these bearings out. Okay, there we go. So our crankshaft is out. Let's get this front bearing out. No, I'm not going to use that punch. I'm going to use this punch that's got smooth sides on it here. Okay, so that bearing is out. Let's see, am I going to be able to do the same thing here? It looks like I can catch an edge on this bearing here. Most Saito engines you can. Now the question is, does that look like it's coming out? It doesn't feel like it's coming out. Heat this up just a little bit more. No, it's coming out now. It just needed a little more motivation. And there we go. There's our rear bearing. Now this case needs to get into the ultrasonic cleaner and get cleaned up as with all the other parts, and that is rather warm, so I was successful in getting that heated up. So let's see here. I mean, these bearings don't feel too bad, but again, it's very interesting to me that I can't recall exactly when the Saito 72 came out. I think it was maybe 2005. I'd have to go and refer to my Saito engine timeline that I've created, but both seals or shields are installed on this, and it's hard to tell if this was like a metal shield. It looks like a metal shielded, but because it's so tarnished and stuff, it almost looks kind of brown, like a phenolic race. But so it's a fully shielded bearing on both front and rear. And that's just counter what I've always done on engines. So I'm not sure what the methodology or the reasoning behind Saito doing that. I've seen this on many Saito engines recently where both sets of bearings are fully shielded still, and I just don't know if I'm going to adhere to that. Maybe for the front, if the set from Boca is rubber sealed, maybe I'll do that for the front, but I don't think I'm going to do that for the rear. So let me go and clean these parts up and we'll get some new bearings installed. Okay, here I am back at the table with a nice cleaned up crankcase, cleaned up crankshaft, and all the tools and bearings necessary to install a set of bearings in this engine. So I always like to use Boca Bearings Lightning Loop Road Power to install bearings and then finish reassembling my engines, just because it's such a high quality product. And I've already got some squeezed into my little glass container where I keep all my excess. So I'm going to go ahead and just start lubricating these areas that are going to get the bearings, get them ready for it, and anything else that I've got oil on my finger to touch, especially this crankshaft. And then we will wipe and talk about these bearings. Now, as I mentioned in the earlier portion, both of these bearings are sealed and shielded, which I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that or not with these Boca bearings. So here's the Boca bearing kit, and the kit number for this engine is an ENK-030, and looking at it, it looks like the bearings included in this kit are metal shielded. So I'm going to remove the shields on both sides of the main bearing, as opposed to what that came from the factory, and the shield on one side from the front bearing, as I would normally do in every other engine. So why Saito has decided to go to that, I'm not entirely sure, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and remove both shields on this rear bearing so that we've got more than adequate lubrication. Not that these metal shields preclude lubrication, but it just seems like that's the better option to do. Been doing it that way for many years without an issue. So alright, so these bearings are prepped and ready to go. Let me just give them a little bit of a lubrication, get them ready. So as usual, I'm going to go ahead and just slide this rear bearing on the crankshaft, and then I'll always install the front bearing first. That way, and with the bearing on the rear crankshaft, it acts as a centering mechanism, so I know that I'm getting this bearing installed and the crankshaft installed nice and straight. So next order of business is heat this crankcase up a little bit and get these bearings installed. I'm thinking that's probably more than adequate. Go. Now let's just drop this main crankshaft in here. Stand it up. Looks like I need to move this plate over just a little bit so my crankshaft will fit through there. And that is rather warm. Let's see if that's fully seated. It does look to be fully seated, and yes, I had to use that glove again because I did manage to get that pretty warm. So there we go. Nice new set of Boca bearings in this Saito FA-72a engine, and now it's ready to be reassembled and put on the for sale block.